think it can be said that the labor movement has concerned itself not only with the interests of its members, but also the general public interest. Labor has identified itself with the fight for aid for education, with the fight for medical care for the aged under Social Security, with the fight for housing, the fight for a better system of social justice in this country, and for a stronger foreign policy abroad. They have been concerned with what concerns our country, and therefore I am delighted that I have received the endorsement of the AFL-CIO in this election. This is an important election because it comes at a most important time in the life of our country. I think the August session of the Congress offered, in my opinion, a very clear example of how unfortunate it would be to have 4 more years of a divided government with neither party bearing responsibility and both parties sharing power. After passing in the United States Senate a bill providing for a $1.25 minimum wage, we failed in the conference to secure the passage of that bill. After passing in the Senate of the United States a bill for aid for education and a bill for aid for housing, we failed to get both of those bills to the floor of the House of Representatives for a vote, and every Republican member of the Rules Committee of the House voted against them going to the floor of the House of Representatives. We failed to secure passage of a bill connected with a Farran bill, tying federal aid or Social Security for the aged to Social Security instead of the bill that was finally passed. We received the support of one Republican senator, Senator Case of New Jersey, and we were threatened by a presidential veto. There isn't any doubt in my mind that our system of checks and balances, which I strongly support, cannot work effectively unless the House, the Senate, and the Presidency are working together for the general interest. I think that we can elect a Democratic President, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate. And I think when that is done, this country can begin to move again. And we will serve not only the interests of your members, but also the interests of the public at large. I come here tonight because I want your support in this campaign. I want the support of the American labor movement and the members of their family. And I want to make it very clear that I want the support of all of organized labor. I have had my disagreements with Mr. Harper, and they continue. And I've had my disagreements with Mr. Bridges, and they continue. But I want the support, if I can get it, of the members of the Teamsters Union and the Longshoremen's Union, because I believe that the things which we can work for in the Congress are in the interest of the members of those unions, even though I may not agree with those that head it up. My quarrel with them may continue, but I want to make it very clear that I welcome the support of the members of those two unions. Now let me say in conclusion that this is going to be a very difficult and intense election. I think there are real issues at stake here which affect the welfare of the people of this state as well as the welfare of the people of this country. You who work in organized labor are basically concerned with one great question, and that is the maintenance of full employment in the United States. If your people can find work at decent wages, then your interests are protected. And that, in my opinion, must be a basic policy for the government and for the enterprise system here in this country, to make sure that everyone who wants to find a job can find one. Whether they work in organized labor or whether they're teachers or doctors or nurses, whatever they may be, the chance to work at decent wages must be a basic fundamental premise upon which our society must be based. I think this country is going to have to move ahead. Last year, we had the lowest rate of economic growth of any major industrialized society in the world. 1,500,000 people come into the labor market every year in the 60s and are going to have to find a job. And they come into the labor market at the very same time when automation is revolutionizing employment. And you've seen it in your own city of Portland here. Therefore, to find work for these people, to make sure that machines make life easier instead of displacing men and women, I think is going to be a basic domestic problem for the next administration, regardless of whether it's Republican or Democrat. This is a serious problem that faces us all. It affects you directly. You live with it. But only by developing economic policies which encourage the growth of the United States can we hope to maintain full employment in the United States. We had a recession in '54. We had a recession in '48. We have a plateau today, which may lead to some difficulties in '61, unless we can get the economy of the United States moving at the kind of growth which we see not just in the Soviet Union, but which we see in Germany and France and England. All of those countries pretty nearly doubled the economic growth of the United States last year. So these are all matters which I think are extremely complicated. In many ways, they move beyond the problems which the New Deal and the Fair Deal faced in their days. They are new problems and require new solutions. And I think that the labor movement has a great role to play. So I come here tonight and ask for your help. I'm most grateful to Senator Morse for his wire. He and I worked closely together in the Congress in this last session to secure the passage of a bill providing a $1.25 minimum wage. We failed. But I think that we have a chance in this campaign to discuss these issues, discuss our failures and the reasons for them, and go to the people and ask them to make a decision. Ask them to give us a mandate to move this country ahead on all of the great fronts which are traditional, I think, in the Democratic Party. I run for office with the recognition that in this century, the great presidents, in many cases, have been Democratic presidents. Wilson, Roosevelt, and Truman. And I think they have demonstrated what can be done. And I think we can do it in the 60s. Thank you. Senator Morse proposed an investigation, but it was in the last days of the session. I do think it would be useful to look at the organization of the so-called importation of strikebreakers. You cannot prevent people, however, providing the passage is peaceful, from crossing from one state line to another to secure employment. What I think should be a matter of concern and interest to us, however, is tied in with the first question, which dealt with Mr. Sheffman, to at least explore and examine and put the light of day on what the techniques are, what the organizational structure is, what the manner by which strike breakers are secured and moved from one state to another. I think it would be useful to have that information made public, and I do think that would be valuable. Then when we've made it public, we could make a judgment as to whether it needed legislation or not.